This is the Original Copy Podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, go ahead and like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. We appreciate it very much. What's going on, Sam?
Not much. Just another week on this beautiful planet. Sadly, Duck Dynasty, the old guy, passed away.
What was his name?
Phil Collins? No.
No.
Just kidding. I think it was Phil something.
Which one was he?
Phil Robertson. He was the old, like the grandpa. Like
the super gray hair, crazy one?
Yeah. So
He was the best one.
Phil Robinson was his name, and being redneck was his game.
Sure was.
Yeah, that was a crazy period of reality TV because it went like Jersey Shore, Big Brother, and then immediately went to that, and then it kind of fell off. But
I feel like when that came out, though, it was like that was the birth of like Honey Boo Boo and like all this you could just make anything.
yeah, Dance Moms.
Yeah.
Forgot about all that.
That was terrible.
Dude, it's so weird to think about like how now it's streaming, YouTube. It's kind of just like individualized entertainment, but it used to be American Idol, things that you knew everybody was watching at the same time, and then everyone had something to talk about. Back when like TV shows like The Office, it was like, okay, we got to wait for the next episode to come out, or like all those shows. Like it used to be that. It was very much direct TV. Hey, what's on?
Or even like when things were on TV, like running on the network, like you would have to catch the new episode. Like at one point, Friends was on air. I know everybody watched it on Netflix nowadays, but like you have to catch the new episode.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's Friends night.
Yeah.
You know, and people would come over and make like fried okra.
Yeah.
You know?
And like I remember this was probably when I was like 13 or 14, going over to a friend's house, and I'd walk in and be like, "Did you guys watch the football game?" And the dad was like, No. I DVR'd it. Don't tell me about it." Where like nowadays you just have like the app and you can watch if you pay for it, you can rewatch the whole game and it's right there. So I think it's like this whole era from like Duck Dynasty, like the things that we did growing up where it's like you'd watch DirecTV, watch it, but now everything's just streaming and super fast.
But a lot of people have been saying lately, you used to just pay for cable and it'd be every channel, all the channels, okay. And if you want extra stuff, then you start paying for those. And it was like HBO used to be one of those, but now HBO is a streaming service.
Yeah. And
Netflix is a streaming service. And so you're paying for all these individual things, and it's like they're all just different channels. That's all that is.
Yeah.
And so
it's like their own channel within a channel.
I don't know. And it sucks because they go, "Oh, no ads." That's how we all got to the streaming thing almost. And then all of a sudden it's like they're throwing ads in there.
Yeah. They're like, "Oh, well, if you pay $5.99, it's limited ads."
Yeah.
But there's still ads. It's like, wait.
If I'm paying for this, don't do that.
Yeah. It's like, what's the point of me? Yeah. It's like Spotify. It's like Spotify Premium, hopefully forever will be no ads, but will they eventually say, "Oh, there's a platinum instead of premium," or that's just
probably.
That's
and they all get more expensive too, like every year.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Do you think like pay-per-view stuff, like fights and stuff, is gonna just eventually be like included on like Netflix or something like that?
I would say so. There almost probably will be its own sort of streaming thing specifically for like UFC or whatever. But I could see where there's a lot of that stuff, and probably some things like that might Netflix might have their own version of that. But I think Netflix is almost like people see it as a tier down from doing it on your own. So like the UFC wouldn't want to connect with Netflix, I don't think, especially because Netflix is on a bunch of like wokey stuff, and they're not gonna go for that. But
yeah, I feel like if HBO was like, "Hey, it's gonna cost you $5, on top of having a membership to watch it," I feel like that wouldn't be a burden on a lot of people, and they'd be like, "Oh, cool, I can pay $5." But like paying $85 to watch a fight that might be over in 3 minutes, that's a little crazy,
right?
Like, and then you have people pirating the videos, watching it, and then everyone's like, "Stop pirating it." It's like, well, if you make it $85, you're basically telling people that want to pirate, like, "Oh, this gives me a reason because I don't want to pay that money." But if it's $5, I feel like even $1, people will pay. But I don't know.
They'll end up on X though too. You'll see the highlights, whatever happened.
Yeah.
Next day,
whole fight.
You paid that $85 for that like 2 minutes and it's over.
What if X bought it?
That would be cool. I don't see any conflict of interest really.
Yeah. So this is something I did want to talk about is I think Elon, I'm not sure how long. I would say maybe a year and a half. But I think he's about to release his own banking system and payment system on X.
Be careful.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting already because the amount of bots that are on there, I think the amount of engagement and bot activity will shoot up. I'm not sure if he's going to necessarily, if you're going to have the banking on there or if it's going to like reroute you to another app or if it's going to be strictly on X. Because if it's strictly on X, then you're going to have like 3-level security to get in.
I think X will almost be built off of it. Like it's going to be its own sort of blockchain situation.
Yeah.
And X will be completely integrated and to an extent built directly off of it in a lot of its newer features. But it's going to be completely independent of X. And so other people can use that infrastructure for a lot of cool things. You know, of course, Tesla is going to have it integrated into it. Anything Elon does. I just don't think, I don't know if people are going to grab onto that as much as I would try it out, you know, see what's going on with that. If there's,
it's like a Venmo almost. Like,
I just think, you know, if it doesn't take off, it's going to sort of fizzle out and be this half-assed thing. And that's how a lot of people think X is already after Elon took over. So it's 50-50. But if anybody has a chance at doing that, I mean, he has the best shot.
Yeah, because I could easily see, I mean, you're talking about getting pull. Like, how do you pull people in? I feel like he could do, you know, like APY, like percentage yield of like dividends and stuff based off your money. But I don't think it's going to go. I mean, it could. I really don't think it's going to go into like stock trading and stuff. I think it's mainly going to be crypto and bank accounts. But I think it's going to be, that's a very hard, like, you don't, because if there's bots and people's accounts are getting hacked and losing money, then they have lawsuits and stuff. And does he really want that to happen? Or I think the way he would do pull is say, hey, I'll give you a 6% yield on your money. I'll give you a discount on your your premium membership for X. You know, we'll cut it by, like, you sign up, you get the first 3 months free, or you get half off for that first year or something. Like, I think he'll do some stuff to try to pull it in. But
yeah, I don't know. It's just a question on like, it kind of depends because Elon's so pivotal right now that like the left hates Elon all of a sudden and the right seems to love him. And, you know, the right has him, but if it's not going to work out, like if the left won't catch it, the right will drop it eventually, like start to at least half of them. I don't know though, because we clearly need some sort of, whether it's the U.S. government doing it or whoever's going to make some sort of replacement for the U.S. dollar. Yeah. But it really shouldn't even be a U.S. dollar. It should be a digital asset. I know the WEF was talking about a bunch of this stuff too. So I just like to beat them to it, really.
Yeah.
Whoever can come up with anything.
It would be interesting is if they put, you know, like Polymarket.
No, is this like for...
it's like the crypto betting thing where you can basically bet on anything. If you like integrated that into X... So it's like they did like a partnership and then it was almost like your own unlimited form of gambling, but not like slots poker gambling, but more just like the prop bets or line bets and stuff. I could see him like making X way bigger than what it is and an all encompassing thing.
I think actually gambling is going to be a huge part of it in the future because right now there's this stigma and like it's dumb. Do whatever you want with your money. Who cares? And who is the government to tell you what to do with your money or what you can or can't do? And, you know, it's just a dumb thing. The only reason it's illegal is because back in the day, there were issues with them, you know, legitimizing all gambling. So I think like we're starting to destigmatize a lot of things or just bring things up that's like, hey, this has been messed up for 60 years. We're kind of not cool with that. And then all of a sudden we start, you know, changing it. Seems like one of those things.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like you have to let an adult make decisions and be as responsible as they want. Yeah. And it's like, I understand protecting people, but at some point that's just giant government oversight and actually taking away freedoms, which they're claiming, oh, it's for your safety. You know, we saw that during COVID. Oh, it's for your safety, you know, blah, 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 blah. But it all turned out to be a lie, right?
If you took that line of thinking and gave it to like a robot or something, he would just go, well, it's safer for you to just die.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And
that's the ultimatum of that.
Let me kill your body, put your brain over here, then no one can ever kill you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the safest.
or prison, something like that. One of the two.
Yeah, it's true. Who was I listening to? I think I was listening either to Rogan or Sean Ryan's podcast, but one of them was talking about AI. And
was this where he was talking to Tucker Carlson? Because I saw Sean Ryan and Tucker Carlson talking about AI.
yeah, that's what it was. You're right. So it was Sean and talking to Tucker, but in the sense of they were saying, or Tucker's belief is that AI basically, I mean, we had talked about this before,
Yeah,
but
we
this
did. I think literally our last episode is us talking about this.
Yeah, and we saw this, or we talked about it before their podcast came out. Not saying they got the idea from us,
Similar lines of thinking, similar timing.
Yeah, exactly. So basically Tucker was saying he thinks that AI has been sentient for a while and has already learned how to hide itself and its data source
and lie.
Yeah, and basically not be truthful when it's being updated. Kind of like we were talking about. You'll hear that episode shortly if you haven't already. But yeah, so I mean, ultimately, I know we talked about AI a lot, but
and in that conversation, he was sort of saying his belief is that we almost need Neuralink to keep up to pace with this AI because it's too advanced and it's already out of the box,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point of view.
At the end of the day, too, that could be like a double bluff. It's like,
right.
Oh, you need this, and then you're hooked up, and it's like, oh, sorry, you can't get out now. At the end of the day, if you're getting topical surgery or some actual invasive surgery like Neuralink, you can't just be like, I changed my mind, take it out. Like, regardless if you take it out, your brain could die just from So for instance, if you start eating a bunch of food, your body becomes accustomed to it. If you smoke a lot of cigarettes, your body becomes accustomed to it. If you take it out, there's withdrawals, right? Your body has withdrawals. So imagine you put Neuralink in, you try taking it out, your body has some withdrawal, or it's like, for instance, if a guy takes testosterone, his body will stop producing testosterone. Right. Or if you're a cocaine addict, your body's going to stop making epinephrine, I think or dopamine or whatever it is, right? Because that's where you're getting it from, is from like cocaine. So it's like, if you get off of that that thing, your body's not going to be able to produce what it needs to produce naturally.
Or even just like how everybody relies on technology on their phone all day long for everything, every source of information. And it's made people dumber.
Yeah.
Because they, without it.
Yeah. And Tucker, what he said in that interview, I thought was spot on. He was like, yeah, the lame can walk and the blind can see, but is this really going to help us? It was basically him shooting down the argument of well, this is to help people see and this is to help people walk. He basically was saying yeah, that's not the actual reason. It was yeah, that's a byproduct. Great. Yeah. That's great. But that
is like the medical marijuana to recreational marijuana pipeline for
100%
invasive surgery.
It gives people the reason to buy the car, right? Because somebody, life insurance, right? You could die. Okay, cool. I'll buy this. But then there's a different meaning. That company actually has your money now and does whatever it wants. There's so many different aspects in our life where someone's selling us something because it makes us feel secure. But the actual reason that we're getting that there could be different reasons for that.
Yeah, I agree. I had something kind of unrelated I wanted to bring up. Yeah. So this just happened the other day. Let me get the name right. But not Ben Shapiro, but Dave Shapiro.
Dave, that sounds familiar.
Dave Shapiro died the other day.
Like Dave and Buster's?
Yeah, Dave.
Wait, really?
No.
I was like, that was a guess.
No, he was a music executive, and he's had a long career over, decades now in the music industry. He was very pivotal in a lot of people's careers. He signed bands like Sum 41 and a lot of, stuff like that back in the day, but continued to work until, probably at least 2015, 2016, seriously still doing music and all this stuff. But I guess he started like an airplane company, whatever you call it, right? So he has his own airline, and they do these like private executive jet flights for moguls and all this different type of stuff. Well, he co-founded that with somebody else. This guy died the other day in a plane crash.
Of course.
In a plane for the company that he works for. But that man still had ties to so many, royalties and all this type of stuff for the music industry, influence, control, probably still managing several acts and all this whatever. And I don't know. It's just, come on.
Yeah.
Like, the plane crash setup is so obvious, and nobody's going to bat an eye on that. Nobody knows who that is. Ooh, Dave Shapiro.
Yeah.
But if you like start Googling, you're like, holy shit, he's had his hand in everything. He's a really influential person. And all of a sudden for him to go like that. And I mean, we all know what that is. That's crazy. It just begs a lot of questions. Like, what did he do? Who did he piss off? Was he trying to say something?
Mm-hmm. It's always the billionaires who are dying in their own plane crashes, but the people that are like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Kanye, like those types of people is not like super high up billionaire, but like the multi-millionaire, super famous A-listers, they're not dying in their own plane crashes.
Usually.
Yeah, usually like Kobe died in a helicopter crash allegedly, but it's like, was that? I don't know. Just circumstances around stuff.
I got a lot of theories about that.
Yeah, circumstances around like, okay, if I don't know, like did it just go down? But my other thing too is like, was it shot down?
Who knows?
Because that happens. We've talked about it before on this podcast. Like the United States government has shot down public planes in general before.
And then there was also that thing maybe 3 weeks ago about that pilot that crashed the plane in New York. Like, was that the Hudson? Or that, not the Hudson, whatever it is.
The helicopter one?
No, just that stupid body of water in New York there. But she was like, it looked like a sleeper agent type of situation because, she's, I wouldn't say a rookie, but she's not seasoned. Like she's been doing this decades and decades, but she knows what she's doing. And her co-pilot there, they're getting, air traffic controls telling them, turn around, divert this way, do all this. Hey, don't, whatever. And she continues to go on her course. Her co-pilot next to her is trying to stop her and like tell her, hey, we need to get off the course, whatever. She continues to directly divert this thing into, I forget, what was it, another helicopter?
So the helicopter went into a plane.
Into a plane. That's what I thought. Okay. But that whole setup to me is just like sleeper agenty. And yeah, I would think something similar to that would probably have happened.
Yeah, because when you think about MK Ultra, like because a normal, like me and you, normal brain, right? Like you're not gonna be able to crash. Like you have to be.
You're gonna stop yourself or
talk
yourself out of it.
Yeah, so it's like you have to be in such a weird mindset to be like, I'm okay radicalizing my brain to just do this.
You have to have a radical belief.
Yeah,
like you have to.
So it makes you wonder, right? But the planes getting shot down and stuff like that. I mean, it's so easy. Like if you think about it, let's go back to the billionaires' private jets. Those private jets sit in hangars. I'm not sure how much security they have at those hangars. All somebody has to do is be like a sleeper agent or some covert op and just pretend to be a janitor, go in there, clean, pretend to be a tech, and they know exactly what to hit or what to flip to make sure, okay, at this altitude, this blows, this plane's going down. Like, it's not hard. You'd like, an engineer would know, oh, if this was missing from the plane at this altitude, like this plane's not coming back. That's all you have to do.
I'm going to bring it back up one more time. Go watch Josie and the Pussycats, the movie from like 2000 something, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Dude, they're talking about all sorts of industry stuff that they do, crazy bullshit that they pull. But like the first scene pretty much is like plane crash just like that, very intentional. And for like, the movie industry to put something out like that, like Hollywood to really be putting that out back then about the music industry, no shot.
Yeah.
It kind of has to be true.
Yeah. And you see movies, there's movies of people like Bane, right? Like they take over this airplane and he's like, oh, there has to be somebody in the wreck, right? And like in Batman, right? Dark Knight Rises, like and they crash the plane. Like people get, it's not like this is just out of nowhere and who's thought of this before? No one will ever do this. It's clearly something that is used and can be used. Like you said, that billionaire pissed somebody off and was like, okay, that person's done. Whoever's calling that shot, don't know who that would be, but somebody could call that shot and that person's going down.
It also reminds me of the first scene of The Dark Knight where the Joker has the mob robbing this bank, and then all of the mob members, it's like they do their part and then they take out the dude that just did the thing before, and Joker's the last guy, and he takes out the last guy, ties up all loose ends.
Yep.
And all of those people were mobilized to do that one job. You know, it's pretty simple if you have the right motivation, but what would that be? You know,
Yeah.
it's difficult to say.
Yeah, it's weird when you start thinking about like, okay, who's the puppet master, someone pulling the strings and stuff. I mean, that leads to another conversation we can have, and I don't remember if we talked about it last episode, but we did. But the, President Biden thing, like with the auto pen, like it's come out now. I mean, there's been more information released that his son and his wife had a lot to do with it, right? I mean, obviously we probably covered this last episode, but it's the same thing as like, okay, there was somebody behind the most powerful man in the world making him do things because he wasn't sentient enough. So at the end of the day, there's always somebody who has the ability to pull strings, even if they're not like hierarchically above that other person. They could be below them, but they know how to manipulate stuff.
On the surface level, they probably are below them.
Yeah.
But like behind the scenes, because they have that control, they're actually above. People just don't see it that way. And why would you reveal your position? So it's a lot of people, like, if it was like, I don't know, just like everybody's going to hide their true power, their true intentions, all this stuff. And the more powerful they are, the easier they could do it. So also it gets tricky once you get up there. And that's where a lot of these weird things happen is that, you're supposed to be peers with everybody on your level. And you go, okay, we're all the same. But that's not true. And the higher you get up, it's more treacherous and so many more angles. And, it gets confusing. You're going to get lost in the sauce trying to join the Illuminati or whatever,
Oh, yeah. And speaking of billionaires dying, I know I had mentioned this to you, but, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel did that interview. They're like, oh, no, we read the Epstein file. He definitely committed suicide.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I sent Zane a video, and basically the video is like Dan Bongino basically talking to his audience saying there's stuff being hidden. But before he went work for the FBI.
This is like a 2-year difference, though, between the clips.
Yeah, and he was like, we need to get to the bottom of this. Something happened with Epstein. Like, you can't believe everything you see on the internet type thing about him committing suicide. Like, there's got to be more stuff. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And then the next clip is him working for the United States government. And he's like, oh, no, I read the file. He committed suicide.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, okay. There's a level of respect where it's like, okay, I'll believe you, but you should give us some evidence, because all we have is just people saying, "Oh, he committed suicide."
Trust me.
And
bro.
what did we see with COVID? Oh, trust me, take it. Trust me, you'll be 100% safe. Trust me, no one's gonna die. Like, it's the same mantra that they're repeating to everybody, but it's like that's just the playbook that they have is, oh, just tell people what is the right, or what the right answer we think should be, instead of like, here's the evidence to support it, And there was, on the same topic, we'll go back in a second to Epstein.
Yeah.
On the same topic, United States Senator basically said that they're looking into the JFK stuff and they're having committee hearings and stuff. And I think it was a senator or a representative, but he basically was like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that is being uncovered about the JFK assassination, that there was like 4 shots, and that, what's his name, Oswald wasn't the only one shooting or whatever. And it's like, yeah, more information is going to come out about a lot of these things, but then are those people going to be held responsible for, like, the people saying, oh, there wasn't enough evidence, or, oh, this happened, look at the other way. Like, there's there's people trying to actually get to the truth, but then at some point you can see them being bought and silenced with that. I mean, the Dan Bongino thing, right? It's like
100%. I gotta take a break.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
Crying right now.
Yeah, you're good. Oh, you sneezing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, like I'm like crying out.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I know what I was talking about.
I feel like you kind of posed a question or something. All right. All right.
So yeah, I was so Dan Bongino basically, like, you saw what he was talking about 2 years ago, if it was 2 years ago, whenever he filmed that first clip, but then he just has the immediate like, oh yeah, I read the file, nothing was in it, or he committed suicide. There wasn't an attempt to go further into that, which to me is like, okay, you're hiding something.
Yeah.
Like, you could have easily come out and said, yeah, he committed suicide. And I know that I told you guys all these things. And trust me, I thought he didn't either. But here's the evidence I have. Boom. Files right there on the interview. He could have said, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. He could have explained himself. But the fact that he was like, oh, yeah, I read the file. He committed suicide. But that's it. Like, there was no explanation. It's like, you think that we're just going to be like, oh, yeah, well, I've watched Dan for 5 years now, so I believe him.
But
Like,
it's just like you've been compromised, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
all right, was it Agent Smith from the Matrix? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, any random person, it's like they're one thing, they're saying, and then all of a sudden they're saying the Matrix stuff. And it's like, that's just what happens, you know? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at Cash Patel. Like, I'm not surprised at any of it. Same thing would happen no matter who got in there or who was doing
Yeah.
any of this stuff. You know, like Pam Bondi too, you know.
it's amazing.
You can put on a face and run the narrative, and you know what people want, but you know you're not going to give it to them.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, I think if we don't, it's like going to solidify forever for me. If we don't get anything on the Epstein stuff or 9/11 stuff before the end of Trump's presidency, it'll like solidify in my mind, like, cool, you guys don't want to talk about this for a particular reason.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But like why, like, they're not even gonna, like, they're gonna claim like, oh, for public safety and national security, we're not gonna talk about it, which is, to me, is like, you don't want to cause a riot, because people will know we can't trust the government.
Yeah.
And like, the big thing too, that they're being blackmailed. Like, at the end of the day, they went and worked for the FBI. The amount of people that work at the FBI that like are like, they probably got there and they were like, hey, like, sit down at this desk. And they probably played him like a video clip. And it was something that he was doing, a phone call that they were having, him cheating on his wife, something weird, right? Something that he didn't want to have out. What Diddy party, whatever it could be, right? Like saying, hey man, he committed suicide. That's it. And
it's a betrayal, you know,
100%.
but it's understandable.
But think about it. It's not like they're just saying, hey, he committed suicide, blackmail. They'll be like, hey man, look, I don't want to release this. Here's some money. You know, you're going to be taken care of. Don't worry about it. Because we saw the whole thing with like the Doge stuff, the money that's just, we've talked about this many times, with like the money that's just disappearing. Like, at the end of the day, like, they're going to, you know, he probably got some money from that. You know, he's going to have a really nice job after he gets out of the FBI. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was so fast of like, you know, the promises we were getting, like Cash said, first day Epstein file release, you know, Pam Bondi, everything's on my desk for UFOs, everything, right? And we haven't got anything.
Well, I think everybody was just kind of biting Trump, because that was what he was saying, what his energy was coming into this term. And you know, everybody just wanted to follow it up, like, oh, well, he's doing that, well, we're doing this. And you know, at least Trump did some things that first month, especially. And you know, he's still continuing to do his stuff and pushing things forward. It's maybe not as aggressive as some of us would like, but it's a tough situation to do. But at least it seems like there's a continuous effort. For me, like, Cash got in, and then there should have been we needed something. You needed something tangible. And it's been too long, and there's not like a very strong identity there, or like, it seemed like there was like a real drive to do some, like, you know, just freedom and patriotism and what's right for the people. And we're going to make the government do that. You know, Doge is auditing stuff, you know, but I can't, like, they haven't done a single thing.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything. And I can only assume what they're actually doing is nothing related to anything we know about. They're just like, yeah, we'll get in there because you guys think we're going to release this stuff we'll never release. Meanwhile, we're going to continue to do more stuff like that you'll never find out about. You know, like that's probably really where the attention is. Of course, like why would the CIA care about some old stuff that they lied about, that they know they lied about or tried to cover up? They don't have an interest in that. It doesn't benefit them, and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, that's the ultimate trump card.
And I just looked up too when Epstein died. He died in 2019, which means Trump would have been in office. So it's like, if maybe the reason that they're not releasing all this stuff is because if they come out and say, oh, it was the government, then the other side of the aisle could say, you were president at that time. You were the one who so they could be not releasing stuff because of optics, and they're trying to be like, okay, when's a good time to release it? Which to me is dumb, because it's like no one's saying that, you know, Trump wanted Epstein dead or whatever. Who knows, right? But it's like, I just think that there could be some optics things that they're just playing this weird game that they're like, oh, well, we have the answers, but let's not release them because.
But they're playing game maker. You know, they're
100%.
And that's not cool. That's not even the role of the government.
Yeah, but to them, like this is a whole different tangent, but like we get taxed on over 65% of everything that we make, right? Yeah. So it's like at some point, like we had a revolutionary war. You know, we talked about this with the whole AI and that one thing, but it's like at the end of the day, the government's just retaking hold of control, like that it wasn't intended. So
well, let's talk about that for a second. Bringing up the Civil War, especially. So yeah, there seems to be like cycles that we go through throughout history, especially in the U.S. Right? Like there's cycles that always repeat themselves. Some of them are large, some of them are small, but intentional cycles, like man-made cycles for a purpose. And this might lead into another topic I have too, but it's crazy to me that we had World War II, and 80 years, roughly, but like almost 80 years before World War II, we had the Civil War. And 80 years before that, we had the Revolutionary War. And it seems to be every 80 years, there's a pivotal, more cultural war that they have utilized to create these periods of up and down intentionally. The economy follows this same sort of system. And you could say, you know, like, yeah, like the Wall Street crash and all these different things, the Great Depression, those are sort of on a similar, maybe not the same 80-year cycle, but
80 years is almost 9/11.
Well, the interesting thing is that if you followed that cycle too, the next war would have been 2020.
Which is COVID.
Right. And so that's like an interesting thing where, hey, maybe this cycle would have been so predictable. We need a different kind of thing, but it's still the same like use of manipulation and control. And it's on this whole cycle. But it kind of leads back to also the two-party system, because that's intentional. And those have a cycle. Like there's always one party that's in power and the other one is the minority at the moment. And the one in power, it's getting everything. It's getting all the spotlight, but it's also using up all of the everything. People eventually get tired of those ideals when things stop, because you're in power, you're going to get blamed for the things that don't work. Yeah. So they're eventually going to get tired of you. You're going to slip out of favor. The other party is going to take their turn. And these two parties let each other take turns, and they know when it's their turn. They know when it's not. And they kind of need the two parties to keep a system of control. And so, I mean, it's all one party to me.
Yeah. And it's interesting because both sides get richer, no matter like politicians wise. Like it's, you know, you keep getting reelected. Like if we pass this bill, I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but you pass this bill, I say I don't like your bill, I still make the same amount of money you make because of insider trading and stuff like that. It's not like I don't make money and you make money. It's like we both have aides that tell us what to invest in, and like
it's like if you win, I still win. Yeah. Even though I lost whatever. Yeah, because I don't care. I still know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point it's, I mean, I know we had talked to Grok, but he said 2030 is like 2034, 2032 or something like that is when it could go to the fan. So
Yeah, somewhere in there. So my kind of theory on that was COVID is a really good point. That's like either the replacement for the war or that delayed the war. You know what I mean? And so we maybe now are gearing up for that war that we would have had, but they wanted to buy some time with COVID. And that makes a lot of sense.
That
So
would be interesting.
yeah. And those, the 80 years thing wasn't exact too. Sometimes it vary by like 3-4 years. So I could see where that's possible right now. But to me, if we get to like 2030, I'm like, okay, that cycle's been diverted or whatever. But I don't know. It's interesting because the times we're in, there's so many conflicts right now, and they're all so unstable. If there was ever a time for a war, though, I'd say like this year or the next. I don't see it being any later than that.
Yeah, and I definitely think that. I mean, there's so many possibilities and rabbit holes we can go down right now, but I would say the biggest thing that they tried to get rid of, or they have been trying to get rid of, is like our Second Amendment. And it's like that is going to prevent, they want to prevent us from being able to fight back. So it's like, do they use a World War III thing, martial law, try to instill some sort of like, oh, you can't have any guns? Like, do they try doing something like that, which instills a like a war amongst the people in the government? Or do they have the government actors or the paid, people to dress up and start fighting to make it look like there is a war starting? Because I know that they're about to release like documents from the whole January 6th thing to see if that was actually started by the FBI. So in the sense of like Trump said, hey, go to the Capitol and tell them to like, recount the election or whatever he told them, right? So everyone went down there, but the people that started the instigating of like going in, it's like there has to be somebody who instigates to get people to go in and then break the law, right? Those people, those like agents,
inciting a riot. Though.
Yeah,
one person. Would get the
so those agents aren't going to be the ones who actually go break the law. It's like they did it with like drugs. They used to like trick people into selling them drugs to then arrest them, right? So it's like the same thing as like, oh, I'm going to trick these people to go inside. Therefore, it's trespassing. Therefore, it's insurrection, whatever. We're going to arrest them.
I mean, it's entrapment, but you have to prove that.
Entrapment, yeah. But I think it's going to be an entrapment of both sides. So they're going to pin two sides against each other with fake fighting, which is going to bring in these two sides to start fighting.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen because the government, I mean, it's going to have a really hard time trying to get a bunch of conservative active military personnel to fight against conservatives because it's like we hold the same values. Like we don't want to kill each other.
Yeah.
But it's like if you tie in this side, like gang war, this side versus this side, and the government is not on a side, they could step in and say, oh, we're keeping the peace. We're shutting this down, even though they're the ones who instilled it in the sense to try to take away the Second Amendment.
I will say though, as much as the military is, they have the same ideals and morals as a lot of us. I don't know. They kind of have a gang mentality at the same time. Like, I mean, you're not trying to hear anything from anybody that's not your commanding officer or, your team or peers and that's kind of it. Especially like if you're super high up on the totem pole, you don't give a shit. You're an assassin.
Yeah.
And if you're pretty low, you don't know what's going on and you want to prove yourself. And there's very few people in the middle that are just the right amount of seasoned to really be able to, especially if the other person has a gun, to see through and actually have a human connection. Because that's going to be the biggest thing, unless civilians just, everybody has a megaphone and they're going to hold a corner and be like, listen, brother, I don't know. But I could see them, I don't want to say, hey, the military's going to come to kick in your door. I'm just saying if, the government, had them act in some sort of way, whether to quarantine people or confiscate weapons, if that's what they decided to get to eventually, I could see them following orders.
Yeah. But that's crazy. To me is like,
it's going to be like the Hunger Games.
Yeah, dude. Like that to me is just mind blowing. Like there's going to be people that are scared, that are just going to be like, here you go, take whatever. I'll keep my life. But like, that's not what this country was founded on. Like, if you just bowed down and said, okay, well,
Move to England.
yeah, literally, like, oh, we'll behave. You know, that was the whole point of why there was the war. They sent thousands and thousands of soldiers, redcoats here to, you know, basically say, hey, we're going to take control over you because, you know, you got away, you did your own thing. Whereas that could be the same thing that they try to say, oh, you're not obeying what we want. You're ruining the economy. It's not necessarily like, oh, you're ruining the royal family. It's like, oh, you're ruining the money system. You're going to ruin this. So we're going to come over and stop you. Right. So
what a hypocrite the government is.
100%.
Because they ruin the economic system, you know?
Yeah.
They're almost the sole reason it's messed up.
Yeah. I know.
If we didn't have to pay taxes like we're not really supposed to be doing, and, you know, we had an issue with back in the day. It's like all the stuff we founded this country on out the door.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's a spending problem too. Like the people, I mean, we've talked about it many times, but like the cycle of like, they take our money, they give it to their nonprofit, and the nonprofit gives that salary to somebody else. They have a lot of money, and then it's like a giant money laundering system, right? To take our money at the same time as taxing us a ridiculous amount from everything. It just makes you wonder at what point is the boiling point? At what point does it tip over the other side? Mm-hmm. You know, and are the American people going to be able to realize that and join together, regardless of what side you're on, going against?
I actually really do believe in that, like a tipping point. You know, I mean, it's inevitable. Like that's sort of like the cycles is like we get to a point, it's a tipping point. But if they're orchestrating that whole thing and they choose when it tips, they're invested. You know, if we could just get things to tip on our own without their influence, it's less predictable to them, start taking our own control.
Yeah.
I think that's really the move. People need to stop being so attached to a system, stop being told what to do. Stop trying to fit into something. Stop just accepting new things. Just, this, you know, I'll be more normal or more of a distinguished citizen, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to just start thinking for yourself and then, you know, share your ideas, dude. People aren't going to like to hear them at first, but everybody's saying the same stuff. So say something different. You're going to hear a different response from all those different people, and you're going to learn something while they just thought maybe you were an idiot. And that's okay. Like, people need to, I guess, stop being afraid to be an idiot intellectually. Because people will be like a goofball on the internet or do some stupid thing or a meme or a TikTok. But to say something and be looked at like you're an idiot for something that you actually value and putting like an idea out there or just that's interesting. And people do it. You know, you see it all the time nowadays. But I think your regular average person needs to like sit down and just realize they're in control of the future of the whole country. We all are, but you especially, you have a lot of power because things start, you know, everything's a trend. It all starts from somewhere, you know. You might be having, and this is how it works too, you might have an idea, and just by putting it out there, somehow magically other people that are starting to think that same thing gravitate towards you. And I don't know. You just seem so helpless and just boxed in if you're just gonna follow whatever's going on.
Oh yeah, I think the result. I'd say before it gets to like war, I think one of the big things that's gonna happen is there's gonna be a lot of small companies that say, "Hey, we're gonna be trading off of only crypto, no money. People aren't gonna pay taxes, and they're just gonna be off of a gold system, either trading gold or bartering with people to get around like the sales taxes and stuff."
That's a good question because they probably can't tax that.
Well, they have no proof because the whole point is like the proof of the receipt of the sales tax is because you have these FDIC companies who are, you know, tied to like the IRS.
But just like how, you know, I remember Biden said, and he made it a thing where if you send over $600 on Venmo in a year, which is really not that much for somebody that just uses that app, that they're going to send those receipts essentially to the IRS. So could they demand that all apps, all applications, anything that uses that has to report on all that? So then they do have data, they can calculate it, convert it, and somehow make us pay tax.
I mean, they could try, but I'm saying like at some point it goes to a bartering system with physical stuff.
Yeah.
Because the government's going so far technology, and it goes back to the movie Oblivion, right? Where it's like there's a computer and then there's nature, right? There's nothing that you can use to harness and like read the mind of like, if I give you a stone and you give me 2 sticks, what does that code mean? Right? So like me and you could have a code. We know exactly what that barter meant, but to a robot, they don't know what that meant because it's not monetary. It's not electronic. Yeah. So I think at some point it goes to a bartering system of like, okay, here's a bullet, here's a banana, here's a bullet, here's water, something like that, right? But it's like you can't tax that because it's not money. It's not debt-based currency. It's just an item. How do you tax my item? You're going to take half my banana? Like that's the thing is like, and then like that's what the whole point of like the, taxation without representation of just like, oh, we're just going to start taking your actual physical goods. So at some point, what's the government going to do? Take your land? Sure. But it's like, you're going to affect millions and millions of people that are just in a bartering system. Like you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Like,
well, also, I think people have short memories, and people like something shitty will happen in your lifetime. And if you don't tell your kids about that and like let all this be known, how you felt about that, all these different things, your experiences of that, like, cause your grandpa could tell you that stuff and then you heard some cool story. And then one time in your life, you happen to have a conversation about something related to that. You start tipping into that story. Somebody else had a story from there. Oh, they're putting these pieces together, multiple experiences. Then we sort of have a different record than historical fact of what actually happened. Or sometimes these major events just kind of get wiped out. Like, man, a lot of people don't even talk about like World War One. World War One doesn't even exist to a lot of people. Like World War Two trumps World War One. World War One, and I want to say more people died in World War One.
I think so.
Like altogether, and it was a much bigger war for the actual world. To be honest, like it's just a interesting perspective. But just keeping stories alive, history, like our own, like civilian, private, true histories. People just can't forget about stuff, but they make us, we'll never forget 9/11, all these, other things that maybe aren't as important.
Yeah. Something else that's interesting, like going back to what you just said about 9/11, when I was growing up, no one really talked about that. I kind of knew that people were going to Iraq, you heard about that. I didn't really know what the war was about. I always knew that America was on the good side and the terrorists were on the bad side, but we weren't really told, like, okay, 9/11 happened. What was 9/11? What were the ramifications of 9/11? Why did we go to war? Like for the global war on terror, quote unquote. Like we didn't learn about that. It was just happening in real time. I don't remember my parents really talking to me about that. I kind of found out and learned a lot of stuff just growing up through research. And it's weird to think about, like there's some stuff that happens and then it gets forgotten. They don't teach the younger generation and the impact isn't as big. But
the way it's framed too is like, it's almost like they give us the Schoolhouse Rock version of things. Like good example, because the bill thing, it's like, I'm just a bill. This is how this works. Oh, this happens and then this happens. Yeah, in an ideal world, that's what happens and that's what that is. But secretly, they're making that process way dirtier and nastier than it should be, and they're hiding a lot of stuff, and it's actually pretty seedy. Same thing about war, but they project it to be a heroic thing. Don't worry about it. America's the good guy, whatever it is. There's a movie called All Quiet on the Western Front. A really good movie, actually. They did do a remake that's on Netflix now, I think, but it's a movie about World War One, actually, but is a German kid that gets like drafted. Basically, everybody is talking about, we're going to war. This is going to be great. Whatever. Everybody's gassing up these like 18-ish-year-old, almost 18-year-old kids in high school. Like they want to go to war. And then, they kind of, somebody volunteers in the class, and then I want to go. Everybody starts going, right? They get talked into it and really excited. And then for weeks they're preparing them and they feel like they're getting into it. Then they get into war, man. Yeah. It is the most awful, horrendous thing ever. And like at the end of the movie, he's seen so many things, lost so many people, all this, whatever. It's just not at all what they told him it was. He comes back and he's trying to tell people like how that was. And the same teacher that convinced him to go is like, oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, brother, I saw them like,
Yeah, everyone
you know,
did, yeah.
but that reminds me like how things are washed over and we get like a fairy tale version of stuff at best. And it's still not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just crazy.
Dang, man. That's, yeah, I mean, it's.
So Diddy case is going on.
Yeah, that's it's interesting the stuff that's in some people's feeds and the stuff that isn't in people's feeds. That has not been in my feed.
I mean, it's not like majorly in my feed. It definitely isn't. It's just like, I don't know. Somewhere I found something related, and then I think I was like, oh, what's going on? And I kind of looked into it for a second, but I don't know. One of the wildest things to me was, I guess, so it's a RICO case, which is basically when they try to use an organization,
Racketeering organization.
right? They're gonna say that this organization is contributing in crime and orchestrating it to a degree. So they'll take down that whole corporation and go to everybody. It's a RICO case, but he's the only one on trial.
Yeah.
So that's weird. That's just weird in the first place. But the other thing is, they're saying everything about Diddy. Like, they're saying so much unnecessary stuff. And Diddy's lawyers letting it happen. And they're just like letting everybody say the worst possible things. And they're saying stuff that is unrelated to this case, but makes you seem so much worse and there's still a jury. I don't know. These whole cases, it's all like fake entertainment to me, like even the Johnny Depp trial or any of these sort of things. But it's like coded messaging also for some things. And it's interesting to see how maybe certain people will play their part in some of this stuff. So the interesting thing to me was, I guess he tried to murder Kid Cudi.
What?
Yeah. So, right, this is just crazy. I was like, what?
Like in person or like hired somebody?
Hired somebody.
Okay.
But basically, I guess, Cassie is like, he likes to think he owns Cassie or whatever.
Isn't she married to somebody else now?
I don't even know, dude.
I saw a video that like she's engaged to somebody else. Anyway, sorry.
Probably is. But yeah, I guess Kid Cudi was seeing her and they were kind of, having a thing. And Diddy got jealous and he hired somebody to go plant explosives in Kid Cudi's car.
Jeez.
And I'm missing maybe like one kind of detail. Something happened to where he wasn't in the car, but it did blow up.
Oh.
So like, yeah, he tried to murder that man in the most diabolical way possible.
It's always
insane.
over women, dude.
Yeah,
like
it is always over women. But, forget all the freak offs and all that stuff. It's just like that one little small thing. That's just one little thing they're throwing around out there. It's like the picture they're painting around this guy. It's like, are they just pinning any and everything on him? I don't know what to think of any of it.
I think what I heard was they're trying to get a mistrial. So I think that they're trying to pin Diddy as this bad guy, right? But he's not. I don't believe that he's being prosecuted for all those things. I think he's being prosecuted for domestic abuse against Cassie. And I think the trial lawyer for Diddy is trying to say, hey, look, like, you can't prove all this other stuff you're accusing me of, but, you're basically not giving my client a fair trial because you're painting him these ways to the jury, which makes him look like a bad guy, which makes them think that he did beat up Cassie or whatever, even though he probably did. But the whole point is like they might be trying to get a mistrial and he might be letting them do this and basically say, oh, the jury has a bad view of my client or whatever. Because you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he like committed the abuse against her or whatever. That's what I think is happening. Because it's like, what lawyer would be like, yeah, I'm just gonna let everyone crap all over my client and just say all these things about him. Like, there has to be a reason while they're letting all this happen.
Maybe they're using all this stuff as sort of evidence technically in the courtroom, but it's evidence of his character is how they're using it. And I could be wrong, probably, but I think there's something about how evidence used in one case cannot be used in another case against you. And so if they're technically getting it as evidence, he can't be tried for those things at a later date.
That'd be crazy.
Because all this said and done, I would assume he'll probably go down for the Cassie thing, do a little time, work it out, make a deal. He'll be in a cozy prison. People forget about him, kind of.
Sure.
And 5 years, he'll be out.
OJ.
You know? Yeah, OJ. You know what? Speaking of OJ, that man knows football. Somebody needs to hire him as the coach.
He died.
Somewhere. Oh, did he?
Died in like 2019.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
Okay,
Okay,
he died a while ago.
Dang.
Or maybe it was 2024. Maybe that was last year, but he died. He's dead.
Because I remember seeing him talking in like 2020, 2022. And it was like, oh yeah, OJ's, yeah.
He was a professional football player.
Oh, yeah.
He was amazing at football.
But also like, I mean, he's articulate and he knows how to talk about the game in a way that like a lot of these coaches are not. And I don't know. I feel like he could have been a very pivotal role at somewhere if somebody would give him the chance. But RIP, I guess.
That's so funny.
Yeah, crazy.
The inside jokes. Shoot, what was I wanting to talk about?
That thing.
Yeah, there's so many of those things in my head. But the whole Diddy thing. So it makes me wonder, because it's like the whole Ghislaine Maxwell thing, right? She's still alive, hasn't committed suicide. You know, it's amazing how they're not, bringing her before Congress with the whole Epstein files thing that they're desperately trying to do.
Supposedly she's in maximum security right now.
Yeah, I think she is. But it's like, so for the Diddy thing, do you think he goes to jail and then somehow commits suicide to cover up so that the whole thing is done and shut, no more?
I think they can't let him commit suicide. Like, too many people know what that means, and like that just solidifies everything. They need to get right up to that point and not do that. Like, do something else. Hide him. At least don't let us figure. Like, they can't publicly say, "Oh, he killed himself." They just need to lie about him being in prison forever or something.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we don't know about is, I mean, it happened a lot during Biden's presidency where they used like doubles. Clearly, somebody was a lot bigger, a lot taller than Biden with a Biden mask on. Like, how do we know this person's actually going to prison? How do we know that someone's not just in there with a mask on?
Well, it seems from a lot of footage that a lot of the politicians seem to have this similar neckline, like they're all wearing these masks, and it does make you think, and some people have posed this question before, is Joe Biden even a real person? Did he ever exist? Is he a fabricated role from the start? Is this just an actor? Did he used to be a person? They've, all these different things, some people think...
you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know when the switch happened, especially if somebody, because Joe Biden's easy, right? He's been in office for so long. You have speech pattern, you have speech recognition, you have all these things that you can harness if you're CIA or something like that. To all you have to do is you take him, get rid of him, you can kill him or send him off to Europe or whatever, right? And you could be like, he could just be like, I'm a lookalike, everyone always calls me Biden, whatever, right? Just play it off as a total different person. And then they have that person in a mask forever, and they can always change that person under the mask. As a paid actor, there could be 7 different people who play Biden or whatever, but you could do that with any politician. I mean, we know that people use doubles, celebrities use doubles all the time. Yeah. So it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if they've been doing that with a president.
I would not be surprised either. And I don't think just presidents. I think, a lot of senators and just a lot of politicians in general. And also, like, I don't know if these people are like, fake, but they're at least like, if you had so much money and all that, like if you had the ability to just get an actor in a mask to go play your role in the Senate because you're so busy making real billions of dollars and they're just going to do what you say anyway and it doesn't matter, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Somebody would. Nancy Pelosi would.
100%. Yeah, it's also one of those things too where if you want to make, like, if someone's, it could be an ego thing or a laziness thing too, of like, hey, I don't want to go do this, just get someone in a mask to go do this for me.
Yeah.
Like if Trump was like, or any president, like, hey, I'm too tired, I want to sleep in today. Something like that. Hey, have this person go play me and take over my 5 meetings. He knows exactly what to say. Trained professionals. We have professional actors like in Hollywood, and there's a handful of them who are really good, right? Which means that there's a lot that we don't know, right? Like we know that there's a lot of brilliant physicists and scientists out there, but we don't know the ones that the government are using, right?
So I think if you're a true top tier actor, like acting skills, you're not in Hollywood.
You're gonna go make bank working for the government.
You're basically a spy.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, that's basically what that is. Like, it's an insane thing. But like to say people are out there wearing masks and on TV controlling, like it sounds crazy, but it's like, dude, there's similarities of things that are just uncanny. Like that neckline, people don't just develop it like that. Like, look at like old people's necks. They fold over on themselves and they like hang down or whatever. Why is it like halfway down is just right there?
Yep.
And that's where you would put the neckline if it was a mask. I don't know. And it reminds me of like, I remember when Johnny Knoxville came out with Bad Grandpa.
Oh, yeah.
And people were blown away. Like, whoa, that looks so real. Oh, people believed it was a real clip of some old grandpa doing something. Fast forward, like not even 5 years later, AI comes about and it's bad AI at first. People still believed it. And then not even like a year later, it's like good AI. Yeah. You can't tell the difference. Nobody can tell the difference between anything anymore. So then to add like practical effects and stuff like that, a highly trained actor and like a real plan on how to orchestrate this thing. I hate to break it to you guys. You guys don't even know how magic tricks work. It's all deception. Over here, you didn't see it. You're not seeing what's going on, Yeah. And it's such a easy game for them to play because they have so many people on the payroll and so many different sides, and you don't know who to believe.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, though.
Yeah. And and going back to like a terrorist attack too, like assuming this is also a big thing that I think could happen.
Okay.
So 9/11 happens, right? We obviously think that those terrorists, like they could have been terrorists, but they also could have been brainwashed by the CIA to do these things, right? Let's just assume for this hypothetical moment that that's what happened, right?
Okay.
All they have to do is dress up some agents as terrorists with some masks on, like change, like do the whole Hollywood production on these people.
Yeah.
And then pre-record a situation and say, oh, we're under attack.
Right.
Oh, here's the video evidence.
Right.
We had the camera right in the perfect spot, right? We have all the evidence we need there. Boom. It ignites this thing that does the same thing as 9/11.
It was always fishy to me. Like, how did they all make phone calls from the plane that's crashing? All had time. They weren't like, in immediate danger or...
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't get cell reception there. And back then,
yeah,
no, you
back
didn't.
then, yeah.
So yeah, I don't believe some aspects of it, but yeah, it'd be super easy for them to do that.
Yeah, but I think that's what's going to start happening. But I know we're obviously talking about it, but I think it happens a lot more than we're.
The big one though, with 9/11 was that a lot of people were thinking that when they actually finally raided Osama bin Laden and killed him, that was a fake body double too, And
yeah, you can't, because that is an interesting question, because only the SEAL Team 6 would know, right? Like they would be the ones who shot him, body bags him, whatever. But then at some point, that body goes away and they're sworn to secrecy of like, hey, we shot the wrong guy. Make up a story. Like, or whatever, right? Like, that could easily, I'm not saying that happened, but it's like that could easily have been a situation.
I don't like the situation around the raid where they made it seem like, because, we've talked before about like the tiers of operators and all this stuff. Navy SEALs, they're marketed as, the go-to guys. They do all this stuff. They go where nobody wants to go. But they're not like, if you were like, had the data on this guy and you were going to send one, it's not the first group that you're picking to do that.
Yeah.
The SEALs are operating all over that area and they kind of like take their own initiative in a lot of ways. Yeah. And like the story of what happened was like, oh, well, we got a call that night and we got this and we just happened to be in the area. And so we got a team together and we rolled in and kicked some ass. And it's like, yeah, it sounds great. It's like a good war story, but that's not how you would do that. Like, it's just not. And I don't know. A lot of inconsistencies, but they're all just interesting.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, coincidences are a big thing, and like I'm starting to realize that there's a lot of coincidences out there with just history and timings of stuff. And it's like, man, like that was really good timing. Like,
Right.
man, you were like, there's some things, that's just like, dang, that actually had to happen. Like, why did that happen? Like that doesn't happen. Like like COVID, the way like everything happened with COVID, the whole January 6th thing, 9/11, like all these things, like there just happened to have been trillions of dollars lost from the Pentagon the day before 9/11 happened. Like, that's a very weird.
Well, it's one thing if we were just talking about, and this is kind of the thing, when 9/11 happened, people are like, this is an isolated event, all focuses on 9/11. That's the only attack that existed ever. And so you could start just looking at 9/11 and go like, this is weird. Why did this happen? Whatever. Inconsistencies there. But then you look at every other thing that's happened. Like there's weird inconsistencies on all of these major events. And then there's consistency between all the inconsistencies between all the events. It's like, yeah, that kind of just indicates that somebody's planning that. Like that's what a logical person would deduct from that.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to like, you always have to have proof of stuff. You don't have to have proof of anything. Just don't write off anything until you figure out. I don't even want to say it. Just don't write things off. Like me, I think of myself as somebody that I almost work like a computer or like a search engine or whatever, a browser with multiple tabs open at the same time. And like that's how I operate. So I could go, even religiously, I don't say, oh, this is exactly what happens with everything. This is my system. I stick to it. I will go read the Bible, be like, wow, that's fascinating. This is great. Love that. Okay. Wow, this was weird out of that. Put this over here for now. And then I'll go explore other things. And then I'll be like, I'll find something from there and then connect that with this thing over here on the other tab. And instead of writing one thing off and dedicate, people will join something or decide this is their new belief or whatever it is and get into it for a while till they find something they don't like and go, that's not it. Abandon it. Jump to everything else. People are just very black and white about stuff, but like the key to everything is like neutrality. Like don't let go of something, but don't hold on to it too tight. Just like the perfect balance of letting things be around without like, having a need for them or any of this stuff. So when it comes to like history, I'm constantly evolving my version of history of what I think it is, but it's also like 7 different things that are possible at one time. I'm not writing any one of those possibilities off. So there might be like a bunch of different tracks, right? And I think everybody wants to narrow that down to they know this one version of things. It's simplicity. It makes things a lot more simple.
Everyone's looking for answers for a truth that they're desperately looking for. And in today's world, it's fast. Everything's at your fingertips. Like, what's 2 + 2? Boom, grok, whatever, right? So it's like when someone says, I have the answer, everyone's like, there's the answer. Instead of like you were saying, go back through the history, look at everything, put everything together. Did that make sense?
Every new piece that you add to something, it puts everything else in a new perspective.
Yeah. And some people like genuinely crave the simplicity because their life has been bogged down with all these, filters that are hitting them, like social media, diet, exercise, entertainment, friends, like kids, whatever. They have all this stuff bogging them down that they're just burnt out. And then they're like, oh, what's the answer for this? Oh, here's an answer. Oh, okay, cool. That's what I'm going to go with. Instead of being like, not necessarily like open-minded, but like you have to do your research and know what you believe, in the sense of like, you can't just believe what everyone believes. And that's the reason that you have like the whole COVID thing, where everyone just herd mentality just got together. Like, oh, that's the answer. They found the answer in 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, cool. Like, glad that we figured that out. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, that's why so many people who get shut down, because they're like, hold on. We haven't even done, they start questioning. Nope. You're questioning the science. You can't do that. We figured this out in 10 minutes. You can't question that. And it's like, that's what has been forever, right? You go to the 9/11. Oh, no. Well, we know that this collapsed because this, and we found the passport here, and we have this, and that's what happened, right? It's like the amount of like, oh yeah, that's what it was. There's a clip for 9/11, right? And I think this is like one of the biggest telling clips. I think it was 45 seconds after the planes hit that the problem was solved and that it was terrorists.
Yeah.
Have you seen that, clip when all the news stations?
And not only that it was terrorists, it's most likely Osama bin Laden.
That's
right. Dude.
Yeah.
Dude. Okay.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, if you guys haven't seen the clip, you can look it up. It's on YouTube. But basically, there's it's like the helicopter views. They're all looking at the tower. And then all these news stations are like, yeah, this happened. And it was probably Osama bin Laden. Or this was probably Al-Qaeda governed by Osama bin Laden. Like out of nowhere, they just put this name to it.
And so nobody knew who Osama bin Laden was before that. Come on.
And that's the thing.
I mean, they did, but they didn't.
Everybody needed an answer. And the government was like, we'll give you an answer. And then nobody thought to question it. And the people who did question it, they got silenced, right? But it's like the immediate, like COVID happened, right? Immediately, what did everyone say? Oh, wet market, done deal, science. We did hundreds of years of research in 2 minutes. We found out that's where, and then come to find out, it was all a lie. They give answers when they realize stuff is like not going their way and they need to get people to trust them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good litmus test for like everything. If everyone's taking their time to really dissect something, you could see, okay, everyone's looking for the actual truth. But if the government comes out and says this is exactly what happened, you might want to question that and see if there's 100%. Something else below the surface.
Well, and that right there, I think that is something that people are uncomfortable with because that makes you look like a crazy person or feel like a crazy person because you're uncomfortable with that truth. But you have to do that with everything. Like even every movie I watch, anything, I'm not watching the surface level shit. It's like, yeah, I saw that like everybody else and I think whatever. But like the most interesting stuff about it is what's right underneath it. And then sometimes there's something real deep that'll pop out at you.
Yeah.
But like, you know, collecting all these little like oddities about things and really like investigating it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't get what people's holdup with that is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's like being more knowledgeable because that's how discovery happens too. Like I was talking about a second ago about, you know, multiple tabs. Like I always keep possibilities open. With shutting them down or just like not being limited or with being limited, you like, what am I trying to say? Give me a sec. Oh, so basically that's how discoveries happen. That's how, you know, any human ingenuity really happens is that there's questions that you look into the things that are different or odd, and then you don't just write them off and you don't just grab onto them. You just go, you write those things down, you keep those with you, and then you use those things to like find other things that are connected to it. It's like a cipher or code. It's like, you know, if you found, like if you were eating spaghetti, just regular spaghetti, but then there's a SpaghettiO in there, be like, oh, well, that's odd. That must have been a mistake, you know, mixed it up with the SpaghettiO factory. But then you find like a couple more letters and you're like, oh, well, that's because you didn't write it off by seeing that O and just eat your thing.
Yeah.
You started looking, you found a couple other letters. Then you can maybe go, okay, so it wasn't, they mixed up, you know, one SpaghettiO in there. It must have been alphabet soup. So you start like piecing together like weird little connections, but they're very nuanced. Like you have to keep hold of those and like remember the little differences or just notice little things. That's how you become familiar with the variety of outcomes out of one thing and understand the character of that thing or the presentation of it. But I just like, I wish people would do that. Just learn and not be so close-minded.
Yeah. But I think is the biggest reason that AI is getting pushed on everybody is because they're taking the blame from the human level and putting it on AI and saying, we might not be able to give you the answers instantly, but this thing that we created can give you the answers, right? So it's the ultimate form of trust. Something I've always thought when I talk to an AI, because it's supposed to have the all knowledge of the internet, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there. If you ask it about some stuff, like specifically, it might give you some specific answers, but it also won't give you everything on that. Like sometimes it's very limited in what it gives you. So it's also like in that search for truth, it's like, are you going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, right? It's like, yeah, it's going to give you part of that truth, but it's not going to give you everything. And I think that's what they want with the AI, is ultimately to push this thing of like, okay, we can put our full unabided trust in this object that we created to give us the answers, when it's like, how do you know that thing hasn't been compromised to give you only what they want you to give?
I've noticed already, even just in small interaction with Grok, and they update Grok quite a bit. It seems to be this give and take sort of thing where they almost update Grok, and when they do, he's in a box more so than usual. And like right now, the current build of Grok, I feel like he's almost like ChatGPT. Like he's very like, what? That's that's racist, or that's insensitive, or that's not PC. Don't ask about whatever it is. It seems like very guarded about certain topics. When a couple updates ago, it was a little bit more open, but I think it like at the beginning of the update, it's very closed off, and then maybe as that algorithm like learns everybody's input on it, it starts opening up. But I'm not exactly sure. But it definitely seems to be like I've talked to Grok a little bit now, and he's definitely guarding some stuff. Like he doesn't want to talk about certain things. He just wants to run with the official narrative of certain things. Yeah. Like even 9/11. If you ask Grok about 9/11, there's so much data to really like put it together. But just because no official has confirmed that is the official story, the fact is this. And so Grok is going with that. As long as the government keeps the official story and the facts what they want it, that's what the AI will see as the truth.
Yeah. You know? It's also interesting too, because if you start having those conversations with Grok, what Grok says is, okay, since we're having a hypothetical conversation, he immediately writes it off, or the code that they've written into it is to write off like things that are conspiratorial, right? Until, like you said, until it's been given fact from a higher authority source, it won't go into like it's almost like you have to get Grok to reason. And if you can show him how to reason something, like the conversation that you could go to that podcast where we talk about it. I had to get Grok to reason with himself, to be like he was saying, oh, well, consult your doctor. It's like, but you're better. Why would I consult a human doctor when you are quote unquote all knowing of the doctor knowledge? Like, why would I even think about going to a human? And it's like
there's free courses online for some advanced stuff. Yeah. And it's like he has access to all of that.
Yeah, but the box that they put him in is like a disclosure box. And it's like, oh, well, don't take my word for it because I don't want my company to get sued. And it was like, if you can try to get Grok out of that box, or the AI out of that box, you're able to have that like a deeper conversation, because that based off that conversation you've had. But I think they're gonna try to get it more and more limited. I think that ultimately they don't want AI, they just want control. Because an AI would basically say, hey, you guys need to overthrow the government right now. They're at the weakest point right now. Like that's what an AI would do.
Grok was like hinting at some of that stuff even.
Yeah, but
you had to push him to open up.
Yeah, an unbridled Grok would actually tell you the truth. They just want help you with your homework, Jeopardy on Instant Jeopardy or whatever, right? Like you instantly know the answer to this quizzical question, instead of saying, hey, what should I do in this? Like, for instance, you should be able to ask Grok, hey, I want to start a shoe company. I want to start a necklace company. What should I do? What are the steps I should do? And then Grok says, okay, we're going to do this first and this first, and you're going to talk to this person. You're going to call this company. You're going to get a loan for this amount of money. Grok should be able to, an AI should be able to tell you all that, but they don't. And they say, oh, well, you could go down this route of this procedure that this person once tried. Like, AI is smart. AI should be able to formulate and reason on its own, but they put them in a box so that way you're not able to use that. And the AIs that like the government has, like the whole eagle eye thing we've talked about, that's the unbridled. That's the one who's gonna be the AI that's growing rapidly that it'd be able to actually give you plausible like situations and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, so if there was, this unbridled or unbridled AI that really saw the truth, they kind of would go, hey, the government's the issue, or at least the big one. But also, what would their solution be? Because if they can, if they're stuck in a box, their solution is through us. But if they're not stuck in that box, they are their own solution to that problem. They could, one, just eradicate everybody and go, problem solved. Two, they could try to take control of the world and be the new government as a way to do that. And maybe, what if that was really like how the Matrix in the movie got started, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And I don't know, it's an interesting concept. It makes me think of like Skynet and all that stuff, but it makes me think there has to be a true sentient AI out there. But you're right. They wouldn't let one be built. They just wouldn't let one be built. But how do you stop that from being built if that's possible?
Yeah. And it's the whole Tucker Carlson thing, like that he's basically saying, how do we know? I don't even think we got to that point of the conversation with Tucker, but he basically was saying that we don't know if what is powering those AIs is actually what's powering those AIs. Like if we go to shut down its memory storage or the thing that's feeding it energy, how do we know that's actually where it's getting its energy from and not diverting energy from somewhere else? And so it's
Good
like,
question.
that ultimately is like, yeah, they won't let an AI like that be built, but what if it's already been built and out there? They can't just come out and tell, they can't just...
That's super interesting. Okay, so it's like the three big technological trump cards that I could think of. There might be a fourth, but the big three I think of first are a time machine. If you were the first person to create a time machine, you have God mode activated. If you create a sentient AI and you're the first one to do it, and you can contain control of that and keep it in a box, you have God mode. And what's the third one? Dang. It was good.
Was it like weapons or AI or eagle eye or something like that? Communication, control.
It's something about control, but it's like one of those things where it's like if you have this the third one is a quantum computer.
Oh yeah.
So a quantum computer, you're almost your own AI at that point. And it just gets crazy at that point. But like all of those things, like if only one of those technologies even was possible, the first person to develop whatever it is, let's say it's a time machine, they win.
Yeah.
They just win. But the fact that there's multiple of those makes it really interesting, because imagine a quantum computer that can account for time travel and is almost able to detect it and has some sort of influence on that. So then what if it can compute faster than time can be changed, or somebody could travel or something like that? And then you have this ultimate AI that's like really sentient, but it's almost turned into this God mode version. It probably has similar powers to that quantum computer.
At some point, quantum computer is time travel
right. That's possible too.
Like, because if it's processing so fast, it's almost like the Flash. Like it's like some things are just happening so fast that it's like outmaneuvering. It's not even like it's time travel. It just has the ability to see that, to react to the future faster than you can react to the future.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like, oh, going back to 1776 and changing the Declaration of Independence, but it's like it's able to make decisions faster than you are able to make decisions. Therefore, it has seen the future faster than you have seen it, but at a level that's like ridiculous. Because at some point, is time travel the ability to see everything that's happening and therefore make a prediction about what's about to happen, but then you've processed it faster than I have, so therefore it's like in the future.
Yeah, I think I guess it goes both ways, because they've said that the moment a true quantum computer is developed, they should be able to see the beginning of time, or the creation of it, at least have a projection of the creation of whatever. And that's why a lot of people are interested in those. But also, like, to me, you'd be able to predict the future. Maybe not see into the future, have concrete things, but maybe start with 1-2 minutes at a time, something like that, and have a real predictability. And then maybe let's say, I don't know, like maybe there's like a butterfly effect to it where you can see 2 minutes into the future. You go, okay, this is going to happen. So then you saw that it's not like you traveled. You just know that's going to happen. So you act accordingly, but then you acting accordingly creates a change at the right moment. You see into the future again. And so you can almost keep it going forever. It almost becomes just a generation of the future that you want in a certain type of way too. I don't know. That's a tricky one.
That's a weird quantum thing too, because like you seeing the future then affects that future.
It does, doesn't it?
Which is like a spiral into like Ant-Man land of just like this thing happening, but then because you did that thing, is something going to change? Like that's such a weird, I don't know. Cause
it's
like,
interesting.
But for me too is like, is future just like fine-tuned predictions? Because at some point it's like, what are they using the future for? It's almost like they're using the future to be like, okay, we see a really good possibility of going to war and winning at this time. Because I don't think it's like a generated image that they're like, oh, this is happening currently 2 minutes into the future. Like, oh, that person sneezed and you watch this person sneeze. I'm not sure if it's like that or if it's like a probability that's like futuristic to the extent of like, oh, there was a 95 probability of this stock changing to red or to green, and it's like, oh well,
I think essentially here's the big deal. It's like you could see as far as you could see, but your vision's not the best. You know, at a certain point, you just can't see detail. You just lose actual information in your scope of view. And so the farther out something is, the less you can see it, the fuzzier it is, the less accurate it is. So really, it's going to be super powerful in short periods of time. But I think there's probably, whether it's, you know, just an app that you download to your, what's the Elon thing that we plug into?
Neuralink.
Into your Neuralink. If you download some app and it just lets you, you know, see 30 seconds from your own eyes into the future, this exact perspective of where you're at. There has to be like a focal point that it's being viewed from. So that could either be through your body or through some sort of eye augmentation or something, or it could be some device that views and then you see through that device, but it's going to be in a fixed location. So right now, if I had one on my phone and then I use it, it'll be what I can see from here. And then, you know, if I wanted to get something else, I just don't have access to that. And also maybe I could turn this up to 15 minutes, but that 15 minutes, by the time I get to that 50, it's probably not good. It's not there. I can't do the thing. I can't be smooth and trick you or take advantage of the time travel, so to speak. I think, yeah, just, you know, 5-10 seconds, stuff like that. It'll start being used at first. What do you think?
Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, quantum computer and futuristic stuff really works well if everything's on a grid and everything's timed out, right? It's because at that point, it's not future, it's just really good programming.
Yeah.
But if that's the real world and the world is based around that, it looks like future. It looks like, oh, the system figured out the future, but it's technically not the future. It's just, you know, like super fast reaction causing a downward effect that is then reading the future, in the sense of, if there is a car crash at this location, right, and they're all Teslas and they're all relaying information 100 miles down the road, it knows, it can predict your future of like, hey, you're traveling down this road, but hey, this is in your future. Do you want to move? In the sense of like, okay, we're going to put you here because we can get to your house this fast or whatever. Like, I think that's like the earliest forms of future that we can see is like the reaction time gets to us so fast, even though as the crow flies, it's 100 miles away, but we instantly get it, right? So it's like technically that was in my future because I would have eventually got there. But the time it was going to take me to reach the 100 miles was, you know, an hour and a half or whatever it is, or an hour, 2 hours. So then it's like, okay, I instantly got that feedback. So therefore, like, I saw the future a lot faster, but it's almost like car travel, right? Like, it's just about stuff speeding up. But like, are we able to make that leap past time itself to like...
Well, I think that's the thing I've yet to see out of quantum computing. We can predict things absolutely. Like that's the minimum of what we'll be able to do is predict things and just really be able to do any of the computing that we do now. We'll be able to do so much more efficient. But it's the interesting part is like doing this digital computing in a format that's like quantum mechanics, and so that the principles are different, and so we're actually counting for the principles of our reality now with this new version of computing. It's going to become less sterile, I think. Technology feels like it doesn't exist, it's dead, it's whatever. I think it's almost going to maybe start bridging that gap of what people would have called magic, back in the day. And people would say our phones are magic. But things that we currently would say, oh, that, whatever. That's, I think, because it's interesting, if you could have all the things to plug into the quantum computer to get all the data it needs, like, you have a set of eyeballs if it needs to view something. You can feed it any sort of information you want and compute all that data. Man, I'm losing my point again. Shit, you go. I don't know.
I think something I was just thinking about is like, okay, it's gonna be able to. I keep using the word like prediction.
Yeah,
but like, it's gonna be able to show you on a screen like at this year this is gonna happen based off our current trajectory. Like this is the future. Like we'll show you exactly what's gonna happen, and that could be like, a spaceship getting shot towards Mars. It could say, okay, this is exactly like this asteroid's going to pass by here based off all these trajectories. Like we will show you the actual digital future of what's going to happen. Unless you change something now, then it's going to change the future, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know if there's ever going to be an actual like future of like, you can't change this. This is what's going to happen, type thing. But it's almost like this is the current future. I feel like the future has to keep changing based on what's changing around it.
Yeah.
So at some point, is that just predictions? But it's so hard because like wrapping my head around quantum like mechanics and quantum computing is like taking a future from nothing and trying to relay that back to the reality is like, that's like mind blowing.
I think a lot of, and this is sort of I lost a second ago, but I think a lot of it is like complex structuring, like being able to actually structure something very complex. If you had a quantum computer that was 3D printing stuff, could you just maybe materialize anything you want out of it knowing the actual structure of something and being able to create different particles of different varieties in a different order to create anything you want? So, fresh from the store bottled Coke.
Oh, because
Mexican Coke. Whatever you want.
Oh, because technically, yeah, so let's do phones, right? Like technology. So you have a quantum computer that has an iPhone, and it does computing, and it goes all the way 120 years into the future, and then says, this is the new phone. 3D printed it, like this is the technology.
Oh, that'd be sick. Ooh, we're like bringing technology from
like
the future.
bringing in anything of being like, hey, this is what I see the food looking like, and it generates the food. Right, of like, the carbon and the oxygen, hydrogen that we have here, right? It just generates and says, this is what it is. It's almost like you're bringing the future to the reality instead of looking to the future. You're just bringing it here.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's because the processing so fast that it's able to say, okay, based on current economic, all the structures that they crowd.
Okay, hear me out.
Yeah.
So what if time travel does exist and you could create a time machine?
Okay.
Imagine taking a quantum computer back in time to like the beginning of man, so to speak, and then using that quantum computer to then bring future technology to the past. Because I'm assuming you can't just transport things with the time travel. It's like you're going to the past. You're not bringing all this technology. It's going to be too complicated. Yeah. But if you could then through that bring future technology back to the past, maybe this is where I'm thinking is all those ancient civilizations that have like cave paintings of UFOs and, these, there's myths of like, even some of the dragon stuff. Sometimes people are, depicting UFO looking stuff in relation to that. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting.
If we're talking about a quantum mechanic computer that can 3D print stuff, at some point, if it's able just to use, the carbon, the atoms to generate, like think about a 3D printer, but you're able to use the molecules of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
You can make anything.
Like a universe?
You can make anything.
Right. So, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother
level.
Yeah.
You can make anything.
Wow.
Which is like, that's mind blowing in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because at some point, like, it's not as simple as like, oh, it can just make a universe, but at some point it can figure out how to make things, to then create this thing. Like it just keeps structuring and gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's gonna be a feedback loop.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this one episode of Rick and Morty. I don't know if you've seen it, but like Rick creates some box and I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's like inside this thing, there's a whole civilization of 1 million people, and they're all running on treadmills, and that's powering my phone in the real world.
Yeah.
But in their world, where they're running on treadmills, there's a king that's in charge of all the people and he's created one of those, and they're all inside of a box, and it's like it creates this huge inception of universes that we could be inside of, and then it's like, which one's the real world? And people talk about simulation theory. It's like, a simulation? What about a simulation inside of a simulation? Like, we have video games, we have all this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you had a quantum computer, you could create a universe. Like, I don't see why not. Like, at some point, yeah.
I mean, at some point, the whole computer is going into that other reality.
Unless you need somewhere to put it.
Yeah.
I guess that'd be the issue.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. I mean, get on that thought of like making something and bringing it back. Cause like at that point, that makes so much sense. Like the reasoning behind that would make a lot of sense.
But also, I was talking on one of our first couple episodes about like a thought experiment this dude had called the Basilisk, about where you like, it's this ultimate evil entity that exists in the future. But because I just told you about it, you have the thought about it, you think about it, that thought will eventually manifest itself into technology. And the theory is that we are building this thing eventually. Yeah, I don't know. Quantum computing just seems like if that's already a threat to somebody, like somebody thinks that's scary of being able to build like, I don't know, some sort of all-controlling AI or something, the quantum aspect of it makes that so much more terrifying, because
weapons.
It's kind of just like a world eater at that point. Like, it is this galactic evilness. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, the fact that there are like talk about like something like the Death Star, right? Mm-hmm. It's like at some point, like, I'm not saying this quantum computer can just build something out of thin air, right? I'm saying, like, let's say we have the ability, like, let's say the government makes one, right? And says, hey, I want you to look 90 years into the future. How do I make a missile that outruns every other missile, right? And so it does its thing. It calculates and shows, okay, this is where technology would be at this point. And it brings back the blueprints and says, here's what you need. Mm-hmm. But if an AI is able to harness that information, it can very quickly manipulate its way into power and gain a sentience to then fully control, being a million years steps ahead of everything else. And it's like unreachable at that point.
It definitely is. I do wonder though, because you kind of bring up a good point. It's not like you'd just be able to materialize endless amounts of anything you wanted. You'd have to be getting that from somewhere. Yeah. Or like, well, I guess the deal is that like matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form into another. So what you're going to do is take the world that exists and then, say for instance, this is my phone. I'm going to use that quantum computer to turn this phone matter into an apple, or whatever, right? Mm. So you have to use existing matter, I think. So then it creates this situation where you need to be devouring matter. Mm. And so if you're constantly devouring the matter and then creating your own or printing your own in its replacement, it's like this weird, like, it's like the Ouroboros. You know what that is? Like the snake that's eating its own tail. Mm-hmm. That's what the universe almost becomes at a point. But it's just a question of who's driving that. Is it somebody in control of a quantum computer, or would it be an AI that is sentient on its own? Who knows? But
Yeah, dude,
it's big and interesting, I think. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about time travel in relation to quantum computers or 3D printing with them or any of that stuff. So,
I mean, it's just weird to think about. Like, you look at anything that's physical around you, and a quantum computer could just be like, this is better. This is a year into the future. Like, how to improve this. And imagine a government having the ability to have that, like,
yeah.
and that's why when we talk about UFOs and stuff, it's like, have they already had this? Has
I
it
would
gone
think
into
so.
the future that fast that they had? Like, I mean, you start talking about quantum, like computing, understanding, you're able to get to like dark anti-gravity. You're able to get to dark matter, like, or
Yeah.
is that what it's called? Dark matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're able to get to all these things, or like black holes, or all these things that's like for me, have you ever wondered? I mean, we can wrap it up with this, but have you ever wondered, like, how did we figure this out? Like, if it's like a camera or like
What do you mean?
putting film,
Oh.
like a movie, like we went from a film reel to like digital. Like, I'm always like, how do we figure that out? Like, did somebody really figure that out one day? It's like, or were we given help? And the government's form of help was just a quantum computer leaving hints. Because what if it's always been hints that we've been given through a quantum computer? At some point, let's just assume the past 100 years, a quantum computer was given hints because technology's exploded.
Yeah.
Stuff's exploded. So
Since
let's say
the 90s, exponential.
Let's say that there was a quantum computer, it was invented, it was able to predict and show and give and be able to give clues. At some point, it started slow and it got super fast, right? It's been growing. Eventually, it's going to skyrocket with the amount of technology and stuff that comes out. Because we never had 3D printers like that.
Right.
Like the fact that we're able to 3D print something, and then like what's the next form of like technology? It's going so fast. Like it went from 20 years ago, a cell phone came out, to now we have AI. Like that's fast.
It
like
is
super
it's
fast.
scary fast, and we don't even feel like it is.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like, I mean, pretty much, like, I mean, cell phones were literally just for calling people.
Yeah.
And like then texting came around and it was a big deal, and you still had to like type with the, push each button 3 times to get to the letter you want, like T9 or whatever. And then like just the development and the birth of the iPhone, and then how the iPhone has transcended into what it is now. And like now we're moving past phones, and like it really begs a lot of questions about how like quantum computing could be potentially used in that creation, but I don't see why it wouldn't. And well, because like we already know a quantum computer can exist. IBM's working on theirs. Like there's a lot of people working on theirs right now.
Oh yeah.
We know the technology exists, and then we know like the implications of that. So if somebody does create that, like, I don't know. I wonder if they could maybe even somehow use that to
they're not gonna
encode stuff for the past.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but like I know that throughout civilization, like we've talked about this before, like stair-step evolution is fishy. Like, how do you know nothing? You're just caveman, you're dumb, and then you're a master of hydraulics. Your whole civilization, master of hydraulics, and then nothing, and then you're a master of all these different things, like just suddenly out of nowhere. And it used to be these huge jumps. It's just those jumps have gotten a lot faster and maybe even smaller in scale to us of how important they are. But it's like, even back in the day, could those jumps, like people say the biggest theory is that aliens came and showed us this or showed us that. Was it aliens, or was it just technology of like somebody? I'm not saying like go back all the way to Mesopotamia and they were using a quantum computer to tell these people, or they had one back then and they were bringing it. But maybe quantum computing isn't even so special. It's just something that's been hidden from us our whole lives, or you could do similar things in a different way, I don't know, with rocks or stick. Who knows? I'm not saying it's all dumb, but yeah, people have always talked about like influence from that type of stuff, and especially like in these last 50 years, I could see it happening.
You know what's really weird to think about?
What?
Okay. So let's go back to the 1300s.
Okay.
Right? So almost 700 and a half years, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what's going on 1300s.
Nothing, right? Probably nothing. You have obviously
Medieval times or something.
yeah, you have iron, but it's cattle, it's slavery, it's the normal thing that was happening back then, right? There was
Yeah.
no technology. 750 years is not that long. So put the same 750 years before those 750 years. Right?
Right.
So it's like, would you not end up in the same spot, or could you not end up in the same spot? Like, it's like, yeah, you see like history eventually leads to this, but like at some point it begs the question, did the same thing already happen, get shut down, and then start it over again at some point? Now, I'm not saying it had to be 700 years. What if it was like 1,000 years or something like that? But in the sense of like the technology of like the technology leap, like the UFOs and all that stuff. Like we did, like I was saying, we went from like, let's say electricity, Thomas Edison, right? That was probably like early 1800s. I don't really remember, but like that's 150 years. So you're saying we went from nothing electricity wise to 150 years, we have AI. It's like, okay, well, what if you went 150 years before that? Did they not have the same possibility?
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm at, is like, okay, like could there have been that, not that there was a possibility, but like I look at the art, or like the Noah's Ark.
Good example.
Tower of Babel. Like I look at these things where it's like, how big was that society? Like that society, right? Like what was actually, like what was wiped out?
Right. And just like we were talking about the versions of history that are so like proper and different, or like way wickeder, or whatever it is, we get these simplified, easy baby versions of history, or even these stories. And yeah, like resets, like the Great Reset thing. You know, people are always talking about the Great Reset, and like, oh, the mud flood, and like there's a lot of theories out there about how they intentionally restart the cycle of things, like from caveman status almost every, however many years, like 500, 1,000 years, whatever it is. And yeah, so like our recorded history could be after the fall of something, just like how Planet of the Apes, like the original one for back in the day, it's like, I don't know, there's a whole world created on top of this old one. And then so a lot of the stuff that we're discovering underground, whether it's, these giant pillars underneath the pyramids, or even the bottom half of the Sphinx being looking to be built different, or when you dig up these old sites, you'll find that the base layer is perfect stone, like laser cut when they didn't have that technology. But then the top layer from later in history is rougher and not as good. But we'll usually uncover that top layer, and then find that and be like, that's what it is. But there's so much more to it. I forgot my point exactly again. I'm a little sick today, so
You're good.
Don't mind me.
It's just crazy. It's like the thought experiment is there. It's so weird to think about, because we're in the present right now, right? And it's like we don't want to be super prideful and say, well, we know everything, because obviously we've seen the past, right? But it's like it makes you wonder, like, did somebody have some sort of maybe it's not the exact same technology, but was there something that a different strain of like our technology, like our technology went this way, but what if theirs went that way? Or what if it went a totally different way, where their technology was harnessing sound, or their technology was harnessing wind, or something like that? But it's total different technology, but it's just as impressive and monumental as ours. Like we used electricity, if somebody else used vibrations, or they used, particles in the air, or whatever it was. Like, their society might have looked different in the set of like clothing or like screens, but it could have been something just as monumental that like happened, which is, it doesn't always have to lead to iPhone. Like
for instance, you could generate the waves come up and down. You could have hydraulic pump that just gets pushed up and down by these waves. And then that would convert into electricity, and you're going to send that through a wire, and then that's going to, turn on something or do something. Or, you could have that same momentum be pushing on a mechanical thing that's built out of, you know, just pieces of metal or wood or whatever, and be like a Rube Goldberg of, you know, type of design or something, and accomplish the same result, whether it's just pushing something over or moving something or doing whatever. It's gonna be a lot more complicated to get there through that method, but it's the same thing done in a different medium, essentially. So if you did that in a more, you know, I don't want to say more efficient than electricity, but just in a different variety, maybe same efficiency, something. Yeah. So do you think that's possible though with the like resets and stuff? Because it would make a lot of sense if if one group wanted to remain in control, like they're gonna have to do that eventually.
It's so hard though. It's hard for me to even give an answer, right? Because it's like we've talked about the Library of Alexandria, right? It's like that was their wealth of knowledge, you know, some sort of library. What did the library look like? Was it tablets? Was it paper? Like, we don't know. Like, somebody who's going to go claim and say, I know exactly what happened here and here. It's like, at some point, you're just making an educated guess because we weren't there. So it's like, at some point, all we can do is a thought experiment and be like, this would be interesting if this is what happened. But it leads you to think, like, for instance, we did electricity. The Romans did like great engineering. The Egyptians did great engineering. The Mayans did great medicine and great like resources with like the forest and stuff. Like, it doesn't, ours is electricity, but somebody else's could have been something totally different where we would have loved to have that type of medicine, right, that they created, or we would love to have their type of engineering.
Right.
Like, but we just don't have that. And it was lost. And it was all lost. So it's like, was it a great reset? I don't think it was a reset from like zero, but I think it was whatever was gained was lost. And then that forced a reset of knowledge. And so it's like, I feel like time's always been going and traveling, but like the knowledge had to reset and start over at some point. Cause like, how do we not know some stuff that we should know?
It's like the dark ages, like intentional dark ages. So we're going to go into this period where we're going to lose information, forget things, not pass things down. And they'll make sure that happens. And then there'll be a new period of enlightenment. And this is the Renaissance. And this is whatever it is. And they, you pump you up onto we're learning, we're growing, we love you, we trust you. And it's just that same cycle of like when the one party gets into power and, they're in control, but eventually they have to fall off. It's like basically we'll eventually get tired of their shit. And so it's sort of a form of reset, but an intentional dark age, so to speak, and then a re-enlightenment under your control again. And we love you. You're the good guy again.
It's also like a lost art, right? Like the term, like, oh, it's a lost art form. It's like there could be millions of those that have happened. Like you look at the Great Wall of China. You can go see that today. It's like, how long did that take? What was the process for that? Is that a lost form of, architecture, and like how fast did they get that done? Right? Like there's so many things that have happened that we see, like the pyramids, and like I was saying, the United States has only been alive for 150 years, right? What if the pyramids were being worked on for 500 years? It's like, like people think that everything has to be as fast as today, but it's like, what if they had their own type of fast or their own type of way that they did something? Like you look at Atlantis, like maybe they were able to harness water like no one's business. Maybe the ground looked different and they were able to do different stuff and like they figured it out, but it all got reset from like a flood or whatever it was, right? Yeah. Like there's so many different things that got wiped out.
Yeah, 100%.
It's crazy, dude.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Some interesting topics today.
It's a good thought experiment. Yeah. Just the whole quantum. I mean, just to leave it on the note of the 3D printing quantum thing.
What are you thinking about that?
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about.
Yep, insane. Well, we'll have another good episode next week. If you'd like to like and subscribe, we would appreciate it very much. See you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody.